Hi everybody, welcome back to Flames Pyro Art for Beginners, and today I'm just going to have a very brief tutorial on some of the pens that we use for making our pyrography art. Here we've got lined up just 6. I use the Optima dual wood burner myself because they have a large range of pen choices. So I thought we'd just have a little look at some of the most commonly used ones and what the uses are for. First of all, we'll start off with my favourite pen, which is what we call a spear shader. And as you'll see hopefully on the wood, it's shaped like a spear. And this is a really great versatile pen that you can use for many different projects. You can use the tip of the pen for really intricate work, using the tip and the edge. You can also use it as a shader, if you either 3/4 or flat lay the pen on the wood. But this one is a really great tool for, I like it for, say, if you're doing a skull, which is the skull project we're working on at the moment. You can really get tight under the lines, of your shading with a spear tip. So that is one of the most commonly used pens in pyrography. Then we have obviously its neighbour, which is the extra small spear shader, which is pretty much exactly the same as this one, except it's obviously much smaller. So if you're working on, say, like A5 or really small wood burning creations, then this extra small spear shader is great for getting into really tight spaces. If you're doing like a small head and you're wanting to put some shade into, say, the hair or the eyes, the nose, etc., it's really good for just getting into super fine gaps. Obviously you can use it at its tip. You could use it like for writing as well, creating hair. Many uses for that pen. That's another great pen that they do, the extra small spear shader. Then another pen that we commonly use it's called the large flat round. Let me just find it in my tubes and I will give you the actual name. Large round shader is its actual title by the Optima. It looks like a large letter U. And what I find with this pen is, because of the larger surface area, it usually takes a much higher heat setting to get a dark shade with it. Say if you wanted to do a really dark background behind your pyrography art, you really need to turn this pen up to like possibly setting 5+ on your Optima wood burning unit to get a dark burn stroke. But I like to use this pen for it, say if I'm doing human portraits, for when you're doing cheekbones and the delicate shading of skin. If you have this pen set at around the 3 level, it'll give you a nice delicate burn stroke. So you can, when you're doing like human skin, obviously you don't want to give everybody a spray tan. It's all about delicate, subtle tones. And this pen is great for like shaping cheekbones and jaw lines and under the lips. A really useful pen. Then another new sort of pen choice that the Optima brought out was the spoon shader, which is quite similar to the large flat round, except from it's spoon shaped. And I have found this one I haven't used it a great deal, but it is another one that is superb for skin tones. You know, it again takes quite a bit of heat, you know, to get a dark burn stroke. So when you're doing them delicate jobs, like I said, with skin, this is a great shader that you can delicately build, say, like nose areas, and all the definition and depth to people's faces. Really good pen, that one. Then we have what we call the coarse tip, which is for coarse hair pen. Its description. You can use this pen for several uses. I use it for. You can either use it for writing. You can actually do calligraphy style writing with this pen, with the shape of it. But I find it was perfect for, and I was doing the horse project recently for flicking strokes of hair. And obviously, you know, over and over and over, layering up with strokes of hair. And I think that's what its original use was for, was a coarse hair pen, which obviously horse hair is really coarse. And I was working through all the different pen choices as I was trying to create this horse, and I found the best pen out of the whole lot I was using was this coarse hair pen. It took me quite a bit of time to build up the layering of the horse's hair, but this pen is absolutely ideal for it. It's a bit strangely shaped. Like I said, great for creating hair, good for writing with. I haven't really used it as a shader, and I wouldn't really use it as a shading pen, because as you can see, compared to like a shader, you know, it's very thin. It's more of a like a wire tipped for your straight lines, or you can, you know, you can do your flows with it. So there's a coarse hair pen. Then we have a range of writing tips. They come in a wide variety of sizes. This is the smallest writing pen that the Optima range does at the moment, and I'm sure this is called something like the PH9M modified writing tip. And as you can see, the tip is quite small, and that's a great pen for doing words, doing lettering with. I also find it's really good for eyelashes, you know, fine hair, eyebrows, other little bits where you just want to get little tight touches into areas, you know, because of the size of the tip. It's perfect for getting into very small spaces. Then we have like large ball tips, which obviously the ball tip mainly is used as a writing pen, depending on what thickness of lettering you're doing. There's a range of sizes. I mean, there's one of the large ones. They come in a wide range. There's one that's slightly smaller. So depending on the thickness of the lettering that you're doing, you can utilize these pens for writing, and I find they move really well once you get, let me plug this one in, once you get used to the pen, you can flow really nicely with your lettering with it. We'll just let it heat up for a moment. I've only got it on setting 3, but you'll find, I mean, this isn't going to be great lettering because I'm freehanding it, but as you can see, you can make your turns nice and easily. We're not usually template out letters. This is just an example of how the pen turns. You can keep it down on the wood. And it runs really smoothly. So the ball tips are a great writing pen. Then obviously the smaller the size, the smaller the lettering that you will do. So let's just switch over to this extra small modified writing tip and it will show you. So that was on setting 3. Now because this tip of this pen is much thinner, on heat setting 3, when this pen heats up, you're going to get a much darker burn stroke than you would off this large ball tip, because it's got a larger surface area. That's still a little hot. It takes more heat. You have to turn your unit up higher to get the burn stroke. So we'll try with this pen on number 3. And you will see straight away how much darker a burn stroke you get from this. So we've got the same setting, but completely different shading. This is burning much hotter. Again, it turns nicely, but you can just see the 2 examples from a larger tip to a smaller one. Okay, then we will have a brief look, excuse me, at these shaders. If we go first of all to my favourite shading pen, which is the medium space shader, which I use for most of my projects. And just let the pen heat up for a minute. But the good thing with this is, because of the tip, when you get used to handling the pen, you can actually use the very edge and the very tip of the pen you can even do writing with it. This is using the tip now, and when you're using the tip of a space shader, the tip is always hotter. Again, you see this one, I've never used it really just for writing before, because I very seldom write freehand. But it can also be used, as I said, for shading. And what we do with the shading, I mean, this is at heat setting 3, so this is quite high for this pen. This is a darker burn stroke than what I would normally use for creating my shapes and depth of work. This, I'd maybe use this towards the end of the piece when I'm darkening everything up and I'm much more confident that I've got all my tonal values correct. then I would head up to these higher settings. 3.5 on the Optima unit is more than high enough for this pen, but it is a great shading pen. And like I said, once you get used to it, you can use the edge to do super fine lines. There's just loads of possibilities with that pen tip. I'm unplugging them and using them one at a time, even though I've got two wires, so I can switch over if I'm using like 2 pens on a piece. I can just turn the unit over to whichever other pen that I'm using. So we'll have a look at these 2 pens. So this is a coarse hair tip at setting number 3. And you will find that, say if you're doing animals fur, that this tip this is only very crude, but you see you can do that longer hair. You know, if you're doing a person, because if you start twisting the pen, then you're gonna capture more of the wire, so you're gonna get a thicker line. Whereas if you just use it straight, you know, the sharpest edge sort of thing, you can get a much thinner line with it. But it is really good for creating, say, dog's fur, for example. You know, you would work away at your shading in your different directions of fur. You know, animals' coats and all the rears and everything go off in different directions. This pen is brilliant for layering up fur. So it is a good pen. A lot of manufacturers will have a tip shaped very much like this, and so that is one of its main uses, is for hair and fur. It's a really good pen choice for that. Okay, next, let's say we have the extra small space shader. So I've switched over to my other unit. We're still on heat setting 3. And this burns very hot on heat setting 3. You don't need high heat at all for this pen. You usually run it between 1.5 to 2 on my unit, because as you'll see on heat setting 3, as the pen heats up, it's not even fully heated up yet, but see we get a really dark shading off the extra small space shader, because the surface area of the pen is smaller. It kicks out more heat, so you'd have to adjust your setting down from the larger tips down with this pen. again, like I said, you can use, when you get used to it, you can use the edge. So you could, I sometimes colour in, you know, lettering. Say if you're doing large lettering, I do use this pen for colouring in and filling in the letters. You know, say that's just a stupid thing, for example. You see, if you want, you know, when you want to get your letters dark, obviously then you tighten them all up, but that runs really hot at 3. Right. This size of space shader, usually we tend to use it well under heat setting 2, but like I said, it varies in every unit as to what heat setting you'll have. The Optima has numbers, doesn't have like a dial sort of thing, you know, of like degrees or anything. It's just has numbers, and little like you can go to 2.5, 2.2, 2.4, 2.6, 2.8, 3, you know. So if you really want to get really exact on the number that you want to operate the pen at, you can do it with the dials. So that's that one. We'll have a quick look at this large flat shader now. So we're still on heat setting 3. I will show you the difference. So this is a large flat shader. And this is, we'll give it a minute to heat up, this pen. But I love this one just for getting the cheekbones in of people, because you find it gives you a really delicate burn stroke for when you're shading. And so remember, when we are shading things and we want to create depth perception, you know, you can build up the depth of your shading just by going over and over with the pen. This pen I found as well a great use for it. If you use the tip of the pen again, you get a hotter stroke than you do if you're using like more of the flat of the pen. But I found this pen was really good for creating water, you know, at night time. It takes some doing to build up the layers. But if you're doing like ponds or the sea, this would be a great pen choice. You can do much larger surface areas. You touch down with like 2/3 of the tip. You get a much, you know, larger shading line. Most of the time I tend to work with more toward the tip end of things. You know, I'm usually working off an edge really. I don't know what this wood is that I've got, it's just some ply blanks. But so it's a perfect pen for doing large surface areas. And if I turn the pen up to 5, which is really hot for the Optima, so if you're doing that really dark background, now obviously we never want to really char the wood. We don't want to, there's a difference between burning and burning, if you know what I mean. When we're wood burning, we don't want to singe and char the wood. We want to gradually build our depth of shading. I mean, this is, like I said, really high heat setting now at setting 5. So if you want to do a large surface dark background, this sort of size of tip is perfect. You know, sometimes if you're doing a dog portrait and you want to, you know, try and capture the depth by setting, say, a shadow or a background, you know, a background behind the dog. This is one of the pens I would use. Turn that unit way down again. So that is just some of the range of pens. One other quick pen I will show you that the Optima range does, which I know they're really proud of, is what we call the micro skew. This one is shaped like a spear, but it's very thin and sharp, and this is for really fine work. You can even say, if you were doing a rope, you can even actually burn in the end. A really great pen tip. Sorry, I had to do a cut there because my video ended up, storage must have run out. This is a really thin pen tip, as I was saying, for doing really detailed work. Takes a little bit of getting used to using the spear shader, the micro skew, sorry. So it's quite sharp on its edge. As we'll see, I'll zoom the camera in when we do the video editing, but it's got quite a sharp tip, and you can make very small lines with it. I mean, while we were not filming, that I didn't realise, I was just doing the threads of a screw with it. As you can see, it does very fine lining. Now what I found with this type of pen, the micro skew, because it is sharp, if you press too hard, it will like cut into your wood. So you need to press very gently and lightly with this pen tip. And you can get really super fine details and super fine lines with it. I mean, that is a very small line. Let's put it next to this H of the high, so we can get some scale of how thin a line it does. So it is really good for doing miniature work. And I know there's a lady who does micro pyrography. She can do highly detailed pyrography portraits on little wooden buttons, and the detail that she puts into them is phenomenal. She must use like a magnifying glass, and she uses a micro skew, and like this, the artistry is superb. So that is one of the really super fine pen tips that are available. I'm not sure if all manufacturers will have this type of pen, a micro skew. I know the Optima does. I couldn't tell you if any of the other large competitors use this range of pen tip, but that is one for when you want to do super fine detail. So as you can see, there is a large variety of pens available that all do different things that can help you with your pyrography, and that is just some of the pens I've got. I've got another 4 to the side, which are just different ball tips, and one other that I'm not sure how many other manufacturers make. This is a large spade shader. It's like a chisel, and that's another large shader, you know, like the large flat round that I showed you. It's quite similar, but you get really large surface area of burn stroke with it. So there's lots of ranges of pens to use for different parts of your pyrography art. You know, you don't have to stick to one pen. I often flick through maybe 4 or 5 pens or more as I'm creating different artworks, just to help me out. You know, if I want to get into a tight space, I will use one of the really small tip pens. If I'm doing a large surface area, I would use one of the large tips. But my stock pen is the medium space shader, and its friend, the extra small space shader. They're my main 2 favourites because you can use the point and you've just got so much control. You can use like the edge of the pen, and you'll just find you can get so tight to the areas that you want to work in that space shaders are the most commonly used shading pen. So that's just some of the range of pens we can use. So I'll end the video there. It was just a quick demonstration to show you how we can utilize different things for different parts of a project. So happy pyroing everyone, and I will see you in the next installment of the Skull series. Okay, have a great Sunday everybody, take care, and I'll speak to you all soon. Okay, bye for now.